Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to completely enthusiastically dismantle one of the most widely repeated and honestly kind of dangerous rules in personal finance. We are tearing down that traditional good debt versus bad debt myth. Seriously, it's got to go. Instead, we're going to reveal the purely mathematical framework that actually builds real wealth. I am so pumped to walk you through this because once you see the real math behind this, the way you look at your money is going to change forever. Let's get into it.
So we've all been taught this, right? You're supposed to sort your loans into two neat little buckets. On one side, you've got good debt, which is basically anything that buys an asset. Think mortgages or student loans. And then on the other side, you've got bad debt, like credit cards or taking out a loan for a vacation. But here is the stark, honest reality. This widely repeated advice, which focuses entirely on the stuff you bought, is the exact reason why millions of incredibly responsible people are just quietly getting poorer. All right, let's rip the label completely off the box here. Whether you're looking at a mortgage, a car loan, or a credit card, the internal machinery of that debt is literally identical. Debt has exactly one functional definition. Someone gives you money right now, and you agree to give it back later, plus a fee for the privilege. And that fee, that's the interest rate. The shiny item you purchased is just the label slapped on the outside. The only calculation that actually matters, the single thing that determines if a debt is building your wealth or draining it, is that rate. So if the item itself doesn't matter, what's the secret mechanic here?
Part 1, the good debt myth, and the one number that actually matters.
It all boils down to locating what we call the interest rate line. A debt is going to make you poorer or it's going to make you richer, based on one simple comparison. The interest rate you're paying on the debt versus the potential return you could reliably earn on that exact same money somewhere else. It's all about comparing the cost of your borrowing against alternative returns. Like, can your money earn a safe 4% in a high-yield savings account right now? Or maybe the historical 10% average in the stock market? That crossover point, that is your interest rate line.
Part 2, the interest rate line. Where exactly do you stand? We can actually take that abstract concept and break it down into 3 super practical zones to guide literally every financial decision you ever make. If your debt is sitting above roughly 8%, it almost certainly costs way more than you could reliably earn anywhere else. So you absolutely must attack it. On the completely opposite end, below 6%, especially if it's a fixed rate, you are borrowing incredibly cheap money. You're usually much better off keeping that debt right on schedule and investing your extra cash to capture a higher return. And right there in the middle, sitting between 6% and 8%, is the gray zone. Decisions in this pocket really just lean on your personal tax situation, your risk tolerance, and whether that rate is fixed or variable. Okay, this brings us to probably the most mind-blowing paradigm shift of this whole explainer. When you aggressively pay off high-interest debt, like a credit card at 21.5%, you aren't just avoiding a bill. You are earning a guaranteed, zero-risk, totally tax-free 21.5% return on your money. Just think about that for a second. The stock market averages around 10%, and it's risky, and you get taxed on it. Eliminating high-interest debt is literally the absolute highest-returning, lowest-risk investment available to you on the planet. It beats the stock market every single time. Moving on to part 3, Jake versus Brian, a classic tale of two borrowers. To make all this math completely tangible, let's look at 2 highly disciplined guys to see how standing on opposite sides of this line dictates their entire financial future. First up, meet Jake. Now, by every conventional measure, Jake is super responsible. He keeps a budget, he pays his bills the day they arrive, never misses a payment. But Jake carries an $8,000 credit card balance from month to month. And here's the crazy number Jake has never actually bothered to calculate: 21.5%. That's the average rate he's paying just for the privilege of carrying that balance. Because Jake treats this credit card like just another standard monthly utility bill, throwing just a couple $100 at it each month, he's effectively just renting his debt. The math here is brutal, guys. He pays $1,720 a year in interest alone. At his current pace, it's going to take him 71 months. That's nearly 6 years to clear an $8,000 balance. And along the way, he hands his bank a $6,200, what we call a permanent donation. He is literally handing the bank over $6,000 of his hard-earned money that does absolutely nothing to build his own wealth. Now let's flip over to Brian. Brian's got a 30-year fixed mortgage at 6.5%, but Brian's defining trait is that he utterly refuses to carry any debt above that rate. Zero credit card balance. Instead, when he has a $500 monthly surplus, which, by the way, is the exact same amount of money Jake is feeding into his expensive debt, Brian puts it to work. He invests it straight into the market at an expected 10% historical return. Over 30 years, by simply keeping his money parked on the right side of the interest rate line, Brian's $500 a month snowballs into a $1.1 million nest egg. By avoiding that high interest trap early on, he earns a massive $174,000 head start over Jake. And remember, they have the exact same discipline. They could literally have the exact same salary. But this insane wealth gap proves the difference isn't about income. It is entirely dictated by understanding the interest rate line.
Part 4, Borrowing Like the Billionaires, the buy, borrow, die strategy.
You know, we often think the ultra-rich have some magical, completely secret trick locked away from the rest of us. But actually, scratch that. They are just running this exact same mathematical rule we just learned, just on a massive scale. When wealthy individuals need cash, they have a choice. If they just sell their assets, they trigger hefty capital gains taxes and instantly lose all future growth on that money. So instead of selling, they do something brilliant. They borrow against their portfolios at a low rate, maybe around 7%. They leave their actual investments alone to continue compounding at 10%. They pay 7, they earn 10, and they cleanly capture that 3% spread while completely deferring taxes.
And this, right here, brilliantly illustrates the core fundamental strategy of the rich: borrow cheap and earn more. They are using debt entirely on purpose. Why? Because the math stays firmly below the interest rate line. They aren't playing a totally different game than you and me. They just learned exactly which way to pull the lever of debt to intentionally capture the spread.
Finally, Part 5, your wealth building action plan.
So how can you take this exact mathematical framework right now and use it to take powerful control of your own financial trajectory? Here is your 3-step wealth building game plan. Step 1, capture any employer match for your retirement. Seriously, a typical 50% match is an instant 50% return. That beats absolutely everything, even a crazy high-interest credit card. Step 2, attack from the top. Rank your loans by their interest rate and aggressively destroy the highest ones first. Step 3, invest the surplus. The minute your debts drop below that interest rate line, you stop aggressively overpaying them. You shift that extra cash straight into investments, where it can earn way more than the debt is costing you. See what we did there? We completely threw out those useless traditional labels of good and bad debt. By creating a single list strictly ordered by the interest rate, your priorities become instantly obvious. That 21.5% credit card, total financial emergency. Attack it. The 12% personal loan, you hit that next. Then the 9% car loan. But that 6.5% student loan down at the bottom, suddenly that sits perfectly in the gray zone or even below the line. It transforms from a hair-on-fire emergency into a totally manageable wealth-building tool where you can actually start prioritizing your investments instead. I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought to calculate for yourself today. Look at every single loan you have right now. Are you silently renting your debt, making permanent donations to a bank somewhere like Jake? Or are you actively utilizing the math of the interest rate line to compound and build your own wealth like Brian? Look, the numbers don't lie, and the choice is entirely yours. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I highly, highly encourage you, go run your numbers right now.